enjoy having breakfast in bed. I like waking up to the smell of bacon. Sue me. And since I don't have a butler, I have to do it myself.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is the Osnator, and welcome back to Good Ol Wrasslin, episode 21, where we are going to be celebrating NXT Takeover in all its glory by giving our lists, our top 10 lists of the best NXT Takeover matches, or at least in our opinion, what the best NXT Takeover matches were. And with me here, we got Shadow Hunter. Say hello.
No.
Alrighty then.
What's up, guys?
So this week's been a pretty big week in terms of wrestling. Again, you love to see it. You know, wrestling is just a lot of big shit. You know, Johnny Gargano's back. Dexter Lumis might have killed The Miz. I mean, Dexter Lumis and Indy Hartwell reunited in a very heartwarming thing. CM Punk got squashed by Jon Moxley, and he might turn heel. That's gonna be great stuff.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, Dexter Lumis took CM Punk's foot.
That is true.
Yeah.
It's all Dexter Lumis' fault, that son of a bitch.
Yeah. You wonder why Vince is retired.
Because of Dexter Lumis.
Yep.
He was the SmackDown hacker all along.
No. He was Vince McMahon.
That is true. He was Vince McMahon all along.
The plot hole to every story. Dexter Lumis is everyone.
Exactly. And even when he wasn't actually around, he still was.
Mm. He was a green t-shirt guy in the front row.
That was him. And then there was another one with the long hair too.
Yeah.
Like that guy didn't look like he wanted to be there, but he was just like standing there. He was just like, yeah, it's happening. And then he's like clapping very slowly. It's like, oh, it was so like uncomfortable, but at the same time, it's like the one thing I always look forward to when it came to those pay-per-views was just the guy showing up.
Exactly.
So yeah, NXT Takeover. That's why we're really here. You know, to give you kind of a little back history with me and Takeover. I didn't watch NXT back in 2014, 2015 because, you know, that was around the time where I didn't have internet and also I didn't have the network. And even if I did, I didn't know what NXT was because I was a very closed-minded individual and, you know, that was their developmental thing. I'm like, nah, it's not for me. And then I heard 2016 when I finally had internet, finally had the network. It was WrestleMania 32 weekend. Oh, God, we remember that WrestleMania. NXT Takeover Dallas. That was one of the best wrestling shows I've ever watched. It was great from beginning to end. You had a great NXT tag title match with the Revival and American Alpha, Sami Zayn and Shinsuke Nakamura, which was actually my first like real glimpse at Nakamura, and I'm like, holy shit, this guy's cool. And you know, being able to watch like guys like Balor, Asuka, Joe at that time, and then NXT began to evolve even more than what it was, and then going back to the earlier takeovers and watching the takeovers later down the line, it was just an awesome experience. Something that I would always look forward to when it came to the big pay-per-view weekends was NXT Takeover, and now, you know, it's kind of sad to think about because literally a couple weeks after the last takeover, NXT 2.0 happened. Let's get an F in the chat for that.
Damn.
But in whole honesty, though, NXT Takeover got me into NXT because of the giant, like the massive crowds, just very like high energy, very just ruckus. I guess you could say very ruckus. Just and all the personalities too, like Mauro Ranallo on commentary when he was there, like Percy Watson, Tom Phillips, like they had some really good commentators too. It's kind of, man, I'm kind of sad now just like thinking about all the good times, and now, damn. Shadow, well, give us your history with Takeover.
Right. Let's think. The first NXT Takeover I watched was NXT New Orleans. And if I remember correctly, it was Ciampa versus Gargano as one of the main events. And it just gave off a whole different vibe to what I was used to with WWE, if I'm being honest. And I think that was the thing with NXT back in the mid to late 2010s, was that it was just a whole different vibe compared to Raw and SmackDown. And if I'm being honest, if you look to AEW like in 2020, 2021, it was kind of, those two felt very similar in terms of the way the matches went, the way the crowd was really going in for it. It's just the atmosphere. And now AEW has kind of fallen off because Triple H is the best of all time. And I don't know, Takeover was just, don't want to sound cheesy, but it just hit different.
It hits different, just like WWE 2K22, which this channel and this stream sponsored by. No, I'm kidding. 2K has not sponsored me.
No, it's actually sponsored by NordVPN.
NordVPN is sponsoring this stream alongside Manscaped.
If your pair of balls are a bit hairy, come on down to Manscaped.
Very, very true.
Protect your head of the tables now with the Lawnmower 4.0.
I'm surprised they haven't done anything with Landscape yet. They should. I mean, hey, The Miz would be perfect for that. He'd be like, I got massive balls. And
because of the Lawnmower 4.0.
Get the Lawnmower 2.0. It comes with the tie-dye colors.
My balls are yellow, blue, and green.
Ah, man. So, in order to celebrate NXT's last takeover, we both came up with 10 matches ourselves that we felt like if somebody was new to NXT and they should not watch 2.0, and if you want to watch the Black and Gold and you want to watch Takeover, these are the 10 matches that you should watch because they're great. And they show off what NXT was all about. Now, I have a big list of honorable mentions, and there's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to miss. And also, when it comes to, like, their tag title division, I feel like with the tag team stuff, I feel like we could do a separate list just all with those. Even though I have a tag team match in my list, we could easily make it another top 10 list just dedicated to takeovers themselves, like just when it comes to show top to bottom, and even just like NXT tag title, because like the NXT tag division was so insane at that time, and they were usually match of the night, especially from like 2016 to about 2020 when like when they had those massive crowds, like genuinely. It was such a genuinely good time that you could easily do an entire top 10 list. But I have one in particular on my list, but we'll probably come back to the NXT tag stuff later down the line. I tried to make my list very diverse because there's a few guys in here that's going to be on the list more than once. But I figured, hey, we got to keep it somewhat fun, because me and Shadowhunter are probably going to have two different, distinct lists. So it's going to be rather interesting to hear what Shadow has on his list. So the way we're going to go about it is, like, for example, I'll give my number 10, then Shadow's going to give his number 10. I'll give my number 9. He'll give his number 9. Like, it's going to be something like that where we'll just go one at a time. We'll go with our first. You'll kind of figure it out as we go on. So you know what? Shadowhunter, give us your number 10.
Right. Well, to be edgy and different, this match took place at NXT Brooklyn. I can't remember which one it was, but it was one of them. It was for the North American Championship, and it was Adam Cole versus Ricochet.
Brooklyn 4. Okay.
Yeah.
What made you put it on the list?
Well, to be honest, the match doesn't stand out in terms of high spots or anything. It was just a clinical match, and it was, well, to me, it stood out because I'm going to be honest, that was one of the first times I ever watched Ricochet. The first official time I watched him, that match is coming up later on in the list, but that was one of his first solo matches that I watched, and I watched the right one because him and Adam Cole put on a show with that match, and the crowd in Brooklyn are fucking nuts. And they just gave everything. The energy in that match was immense, and Adam Cole and Ricochet performed to a high level in that one as well. And if I'm not wrong, I think Adam Cole won that match.
No, I believe Ricochet did.
Great, so I'm wrong. It's been a while since I've watched this match, but I don't really watch matches more than once, if I'm being honest, just because it keeps the match better. Because I feel like if you watch something over and over again, like a wrestling match, it gets the aura of it just seems a bit worse, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, like I get what you mean. I think when you watch it over and over again, it kind of gets to a point of, it starts to get a little worse because it's like it's kind of boring. But
Yeah.
I sometimes I watch matches again and again because like some of them are just like so good that you have to rewatch at least once. But that's a good pick. Honestly, I did not have that in my list because I genuinely forgot about it. But it was a really good match.
Yeah.
And spoiler, Adam Cole actually is on my list a couple times. He's not like entirely in my list, but he's definitely made an impact on my list.
Yeah.
All right, my number 10 is from actually the first NXT Takeover Brooklyn, and it was for the NXT Women's Championship, Bayley versus.
Oh.
I think when you look at that match in particular, that was really where the women, like, this is really where the women's revolution really started. I know that they did that whole storyline back in 2015. Oh, it's the Divas Revolution. We're gonna have Team Bad versus Team Bella versus Team Paige or something like that. And it was just like, I get what they were going for, but to me, the women's revolution started in an NXT because around that time you had the Four Horsewomen, you had Paige, Asuka was coming in. Like, you had all this great talent on the roster, but
Yeah.
they never really had a chance. Like, they had a chance to show it too, and they delivered. Like, matches like Sasha Charlotte, Sasha Becky, the Four Horsewomen Fatal 4-Way. But this match in particular, I think, to me, steals the crown from all of them because not only was it in front of a huge crowd in the Barclays Center, but it was a very emotional match. It was a simple story of, Bayley wanting to be champion, but Sasha was the heel, and she's like, "No, I'm the champion. I'm gonna kick your ass." And they told a really good story with Sasha targeting the arm. You had, them
Yeah.
stealing. Bayley took the bank statement at one point. Doing the poison Rana from the top rope, and Bayley's win just made it so good because it was such an emotional story of just like I guess you could say a very casual, someone who's like not necessarily down to earth because at that time it was kind of silly, the Bayley gimmick at that time where she had the inflatable tube men and the entrances. Like it was just such a good match. Like it's easily one of those women's matches I recommend everybody watch because I'm looking at the significance behind it and I'm just saying to myself, this is where the women's revolution really started. So that is why it's in my number 10, because while the match is great, all 10 of these matches are great and people should watch
Yeah.
them. But this is just my opinion. It's in my number 10, Bayley versus Sasha Banks.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna say much about it because I will explain later.
Okay. Fair
Right.
enough. Shadow, give me your number 9.
In terms of traditional tag matches, like obviously you have War Games matches and that. I don't really count those as tag matches, but I have one tag team match in this list, and it is DIY versus the Revival 2 out of 3 falls match.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Where do I start with this one? Similar to a Ricochet match, this was my first showing of Ciampa and Gargano. And we're both pretty big fans of the two. And I don't know, something in that match just was alluring to me, and it just lured me into the match even more. The Revival, I think they were the champions going into that match. I can't really remember.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. But Revival as champions, like the Revival as a tag team as a whole in NXT was something different. And DIY was kind of like just this kind of underdog team of sorts. And I really can't remember the finish of the match. I think
I believe the finish was, I think Ciampa had one of them in the armbar, and I think Johnny had the other one in the Gargano.
Oh yeah, and they're both tapped, and then
Yeah.
they won the tap. Yes, I remember that now. Yeah, that finish. Thanks for jogging my memory, but that finish, that is my favorite tag finish. Like that match finish. Now thinking about it, was one of my favorite finishes to a tag team match in tag team wrestling in a while, and just having the DIY win in that fashion, and how they were elevated because of this match as well, and just how good DIY and Revival did to boost each other and NXT tag team wrestling as a whole. I think from then forwards, this really set a tone for tag team wrestling in the modern era of WWE. Whilst you could say the Usos and New Day kind of had that effect, it really started with Revival versus DIY in that feud. Because then you go to DIY versus AOP, you've got New Day versus Usos, you've got Street Profits. Like, I feel like those newer tag teams, modern tag teams we have now, and the way they portray themselves and the matches they put on really stemmed from Revival versus DIY and NXT. And that match was a clinic. And I just love that match because of what I saw in Gargano and Ciampa. Personally, I've always thought Ciampa was the biggest star out of the two. Obviously, I think you have different feelings about that, and we could talk about that all day, but I think we'd rather not. But just Gargano and Ciampa together in matches against Revival, AOP, but that Revival match in particular was the stepping stone to something greater for tag team wrestling.
Okay. Yeah, no, I actually kind of see the funny thing is I also have that match on my list, and
Right.
we'll get to that in a little bit, but no, that's a great match too. That when I get to it, I'll give my own thoughts on it because my number 9 is the only takeover match on my list, at least when it comes to the actual list, and not the honorable mentions. That this was during the pandemic, right? This was like
Ooh.
not the best of times for takeovers, but this particular takeover was still good even through the pandemic because we went through In Your House at this time and NXT Takeover 30, which were just meh
I think I know
takeovers.
which one you're. I don't know if I know which one you're referring to, but I think I know who one of the people in the match is.
It is NXT Takeover 31, and it was for the NXT Championship. Finn Balor versus Kyle O'Reilly.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I was thinking Kyle O'Reilly versus Adam Cole, but
No, that match was good too, but I wanted to put Balor O'Reilly on my list because I
yeah,
think when it just comes down to it, it was just a very old schoolish wrestling match where
yeah,
very technical, very sound. It had more of the brutality around it, and just the small stories it told, and just the little build up. I mean, it wasn't like the most incredible build up ever, but it was straightforward to the point. Kyle O'Reilly wants to prove everybody wrong. He wants to prove his doubters wrong. He wants to be the NXT champion. And Finn Balor had that amazing line where 9 times out of 10, Kyle O'Reilly would be the champion, but the 10th is him. Like,
yeah.
it was a very strike heavy match, very, very reliant on the holds, but it worked. And the small stories of, Finn Balor hitting Kyle O'Reilly in the stomach, and that was the weak point. Of course, a joint manipulation, and just a very brutal match where like actual injuries occurred. Like Finn Balor actually broke his jaw during the match, which kind of actually makes the match better in a way because of how like hard hitting they both were, and also there was Kyle O'Reilly like broke some teeth. I think he also got a concussion, or not a concussion, but they both definitely didn't leave unscathed. And it was a very stiff match, very technical. Balor won with the coup de grace, not the 1916, because that was his finisher in NXT at the time, but he used the coup de grace, which to me, I think it worked better with the coup de grace as the finish because of how because him going after the midsection, I think it just made more sense for him to end with a coup de grace anyway. I mean, I know some people would argue, well, if it lasted a little longer, I think it was perfect the way it was. I think it got a lot of time, very stiff. I had really nothing much else to say. Finn Balor versus Kyle O'Reilly, NXT TakeOver 31 is my number 9.
Right. I did not think of that match at all. I think it's just because it was in the pandemic era. I feel like you kind of forget those matches. Like to
Yeah.
me, in terms of pandemic era, the one that really stuck out to me was I think it was Finn Balor versus Pete Dunne for the NXT title. That one stuck out for me. When Adam Cole betrayed Undisputed Era.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that stood out to me in terms of pandemic era. But I did not think of that match, and now kind of reminiscing over it in my head. I think I agree with you. That match was just a pure clinic, and just the technical aspects of the match, and the fact of how this elevated Kyle O'Reilly to be a top level fighter, not a wrestler, not a superstar, top level fighter in NXT, really kind of cemented him, but also the dominance of the Undisputed Era and their past achievements as well.
I agree.
Good show. Not on
Good
my
stuff.
list, but yeah.
All right, number 8.
Yeah. Right. Well, you mentioned NXT Takeover Dallas at the start, and I think if you don't have this match of your thing, then it must be in your honorable mentions, and if it's not, you will be assassinated by the Hitman. It's Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura.
I do have it on my list. Spoiler alert.
Good. Now, I'm going to be honest. I didn't watch this match when it first happened. I didn't watch it live. I didn't watch it on the network. And I watched it a couple of months ago. And thinking of where NXT was at the time and the relevance of it, like the women's division was really the main focus around that time, especially because Sasha, Bayley, Becky, Charlotte, those feuds. But Shinsuke, Sami Zayn, Samoa Joe, Finn, those 4. I forgot about Kevin Owens, but he went up to main roster around that time. Those guys really, with them, just those 5, pulled themselves up and elevated themselves. And that match was probably the perfect, like, it symbolized a new age in NXT. And so yeah, and it just, to me, with that match, I think it's more important than people realize, especially to the male side of NXT. And the match itself was brilliant. Shinsuke, whilst I don't think he's a world championship material wrestler anymore, back then when he was facing the likes of Zayn, Joe, and such, he looked like he could beat anyone on the main roster, and he just looked so prolific in the ring. And Sami was so over in that match as well, I do believe. And Sami, whilst he's really good, like talking and the promo work, you cannot skip on his in-ring work as well. Like, he is a safe wrestler to work with, which is one of the key things you look for, and he is a brilliant in-ring persona as well. And those two work so well together, and the match was definitely more important than people realize. And it was just a great match. I can't really put it into words, but you get what I mean.
What's up, Kavari? Yeah, no, I get what you mean, because when it comes down to it, I feel like this was the defining match for NXT at that time, especially because they just got a huge star from Japan in Shinsuke Nakamura, and kind of looking back now, it's like, it's kind of upsetting to me that someone like Shinsuke Nakamura, who should have been a world champion on the main roster, never did. Because even when Nakamura got the rub from guys like Cena and Orton, like, it's the fact that Jinder Mahal was the guy that they picked over Shinsuke at that time is honestly really just, it's embarrassing. Very upsetting and embarrassing.
Yeah.
Because, Nakamura was, he was popular, and then, they could have maybe had him win the belt at Mania. That was, like, really their last chance to make Nakamura a big, like, oh, Nakamura is the guy, especially when he eliminated both Cena and Reigns from the Rumble. It's like, but no, they decided to have his gimmick then to be him low-blowing AJ Styles every week, and then he went right back down the mid-card. It's... I mean, I'm hoping with Triple H there now, they can elevate him a bit more, seeing as how Nakamura, to me, is a very unique wrestler, especially in the sea of main roster talent, where he can wrestle the strong style. I guess you could say wrestle the strong style, and just being able to put on a good match. But he was never really able to show that on the main roster because they wanted him to work the WWE style, and the WWE style does not fit Nakamura. It fits someone like, I guess, well, I'll use this as an example since this was his debut main roster, Dolph Ziggler. I think Dolph can wrestle the strong style, or no, he can wrestle the WWE style really well, and I think Dolph is a safe worker, and Dolph is good. I like Dolph, but Shinsuke has his own distinct flavor to him. So it's and I agree with you. Sami Zayn definitely had he's a great talker, and I like him as a heel, but man, his in-ring work is great too. So, all right, my number 8. This is from NXT Takeover New Orleans, and no, it's not the match that you may think of. And that is the North American Championship ladder match to determine the first NXT North American champion. You have Adam Cole, Ricochet, EC3, Killian Dane, Velveteen Dream, Lars Sullivan. Hang on, I think there was another person that I'm trying to think of. Oh God, what was it?
I was thinking Dominic Dijakovic, but I don't think that's right.
No, I don't think. Let's see here. It was Adam Cole, EC3, Killian Dane, Lars Sullivan, Ricochet. No, okay, so it was just 6 of them. Okay, that makes more sense. The reason why I put it in my top 10 is not only because of the significance of it to crown the first North American champion, but I just think the ladder match itself is great because each guy in the match had their time to shine at least once or twice in the match. Like Adam Cole, did his super kick thing, he's doing the super kick party. Ricochet's flying around everywhere because Ricochet is a great high flyer. I mean, Velveteen Dream, as much as he's not necessarily everyone's favorite anymore, you got to give him his props here. Him, diving off the top of the ladder with the purple Rainmaker, that was great. Killian Dane and Lars Sullivan just having their stare down, and Killian Dane is also really great too. He can do some crazy stuff. And also just I think EC3 did some things too. But man, I mean, when you just talk about ladder matches in NXT, this is the one that I'm this one is really good. All the really crazy ladder spots, everything you want. And also, this was Adam Cole's first real step to becoming the second ever NXT Triple Crown champion. Because he ends up winning the NXT title the following year, not at the following NXT Takeover, but at NXT Takeover 25. But I just think in general, when it comes to the ladder match itself, because everyone gets their own time to shine, you had some crazy ladder spots, Mauro Ranallo going crazy, and Adam Cole winning, which to me, I liked Adam Cole winning, but I feel like EC3 might have needed it more, especially since Adam Cole was already basically a main eventer at that time. But I also understand giving it to him because you want to have your champion, your first champion, to be someone important, and Adam Cole is important, especially to NXT's lore, I guess you could say. So, I mean, you had a good winner, and plus, fucking awesome matchup. That's why I'm putting it in my top 10 list. It was great. Watch it.
Yeah. Well, just like the Sasha and Bayley match, I will speak more on this later.
Ooh, okay.
Alright. Number 8s were pretty good. Yeah. Nakamura and Zayn, and then you have the inaugural NXT North American ladder match with Adam Cole winning. Yeah. Those are pretty good options.
Very, very good.
All
All
right.
right. Number 7.
All right. Cast your minds back. NXT Takeover 36. There's a certain match on there.
Now I'm sad.
Walter versus Ilya Dragunov.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, that match was so good.
As an English lad myself, the NXT UK title is kind of personal for moi, but this is my favourite NXT UK title match. And this was a banger. This is one of my favourite matches I've seen Walter in. Obviously, you have Walter versus Ciampa, which was a brilliant match, and then obviously you have Walter versus Shinsuke, which happened 2 SmackDowns ago, I believe.
Oh, dude, that match was good too.
Yeah,
Holy shit.
but I think if you want to look at if Walter or Gunther is a safe pair of hands for any main event title, watch this match with Ilya Dragunov and you will see what Walter could do. Like, honestly, before Karrion Kross came back, I wanted Walter to be the one to dethrone Roman Reigns. Now, that's a topic for another time, but...
Wait a minute. Walter? Don't you mean a Gunther?
No. But yeah, he was one of the people I wanted to dethrone Roman, just because he, as a whole, could do it. Like, realistically, he could chop Reigns from one side of the ring, from the announce table, all the way to the fucking main stage. Like, Walter's a different being. Like, should I say this? Should I piss people off? Alright, let's do it. Walter gives me Brock Lesnar vibes in terms of his in-ring prowess, and if they push him right, I could see Walter becoming the face of WWE. And this match is the reason why anyone thinks of that.
Yeah, that definitely. Yeah, I mean, Walter, I'm sorry, Gunther is a very, like, he's a guy that would have fit Vince's, I guess, MO. He's a guy with a good look. He's good in the ring. He's charismatic, I would say. I mean, in a way, but he's more on the wrestling side of things. So, he has that like just aura about him, and his chops. Holy shit! Like if you get chopped in the fucking chest, you might die.
Yeah.
Like I swear, like that probably will happen.
Yeah. You might not want to let Walter chop Triple H. His fucking pacemaker's going to turn off.
The guy's gonna like fucking like die right then and there.
I won't be surprised.
Like Triple H is just like that's his retirement match. Like he just comes out of retirement for no reason to face Gunther, and like Gunther fucking chops him, and then literally like 2 minutes into the match, and then you just see Triple H lying on the ground. It's like
Yeah.
that Triple H is like, and then they're just like, Triple H, why aren't you getting up? Triple H, oh fuck,
He's dead.
oops. And then Vince McMahon comes out and is like, yeah, look who's in charge again, boys. Me. And then they're like, oh God, please no. Yeah. Damn, that's like an alternate reality that would be really fucking scary to live in.
Yeah.
But very good pick for number 7. It's actually in my honorable mentions. It would have been in my list, but then I went. There's like there, man. There. It was really hard to make this list. Number 7 for me, NXT Takeover New York, 2019, for 2 out of 3 falls for the NXT Championship. Johnny Gargano versus Adam Cole. I mean, just taking away from like Johnny Gargano's awesome NXT Takeover gear at that takeover, where it was the Iron Man gear. The match was excellent. It was perfectly paced. I think it worked to everyone's strengths. That was the birth of Johnny Gargano's heel turn. Very fun fact, because that crowd booed Gargano and cheered Adam Cole. Also, another fun fact, it was actually supposed to be Ciampa Gargano 2 out of 3 falls, but because Ciampa got the neck injury, of course, things change. Now, again, when I say it's perfectly paced, it was very, like, I guess you could say more technically sound in the first fall, you know, and then Adam Cole gets the first fall, then, you know, they're both tired, but Johnny's trying to fight out from underneath in the second fall, and then, you know, Gargano has to beat the odds in the third fall because the Undisputed Era come out, and then Johnny takes them out in a really cool way, and of course, you know, Adam Cole doing the fairy tale ending on the announce table, and, you know, just all the little nods to Ciampa as well, which I thought was really cool. And that crowd was like so electric, even for like a main event like that. That was just like, it went so long, but the crowd was still into it. And then Gargano finally getting his big moment was a really cool moment to see, especially with all the crap he went through in 2018. That was, to me, that would have been the perfect ending to Ciampa and Gargano's story if Ciampa didn't get hurt. Which, looking back, I think Ciampa Gargano in a 2 out of 3 falls match would have been amazing. But I'm not necessarily complaining about what we got here, though, because this match was excellent. I mean, to me, it was the perfect result because Gargano, you know, at that time needed to win the NXT Championship. It kind of sucks that his run he didn't really do anything with it. It was just more like, hey guys, I'm the NXT champion, you know. Oh, by the way, I'm going to lose to Adam Cole now. All right, see ya. Like, it just, as much as the title run was lacking, the title one was excellent. And plus, Ciampa kind of coming out and hugging both Gargano and Candice. That was a really cool emotional moment for me. So that is my number 7.
Right. Okay. I thought you taken the wind out of my sails here because my number 6 is Johnny Gargano versus Adam Cole at NXT Takeover New York 2 out of 3 falls.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, I don't need to explain why. What's your number 6?
All right, moving on. All right, my number 6. This one, I don't know if you would have this on your list, but this was from the last NXT Takeover before the pandemic. NXT Takeover Portland, and it was for the NXT North American Championship. Keith Lee versus Dominik Dijakovic. Now, I think we can all agree here, as far as wrestling fans, when it comes to chemistry, both Dominik Dijakovic and Keith Lee have tremendous chemistry. And just them being able to do the things that they were able to do, such as, you know, Keith Lee doing, like, you know, head scissors, and, you know, them doing flips off the top rope. Like, I think in one spot, Dominik Dijakovic went over the top rope. Keith Lee caught him into a power bomb, but then, like, there was this, like, very back and forth, very, like, fast paced. I think at one time Keith Lee was sitting on, like, the desk chair, and then Dominik Dijakovic does, like, the big springboard off it and onto Keith Lee, and I'm like, oh my god, this is great. And then Dominik Dijakovic hits him with, like, a Spanish fly off the top rope, and Keith Lee hits a spirit bomb onto him, and then, like, Dominik Dijakovic just bounces right back up, and then he hits with another spirit bomb, and it's like, oh my god, it was so fucking good. Oh man, NXT Takeover Portland was so good, and even that makes me upset because that was the last takeover in front of a fucking huge NXT crowd in Portland. It's like, oh my god, that match was excellent. If none of you guys have seen it, please go and do so. It's on YouTube for free. It is fucking excellent. Truly great. Like, oh my god. And then just, oh god, it gives me chills even like talking about it. It's so good. Oh man. But yeah, that is my number 7. I think I made my point across on this one.
You mean your
So
number
good.
6?
Yeah, my number 6.
Yeah. Alright. Well, my number 6 took place at NXT Takeover Philadelphia.
Ooh, I think I know where you're going with this.
It was for the NXT Championship. It was between Johnny Gargano and Andrade. And the reason why I picked this is because this is... How do I put this? How do I put this exactly? It's hard to say, but this match had the best crowd in my opinion. Like, Johnny was over in this match over Andrade. People were begging for Johnny to win this, but it just didn't come to fruition. And when Johnny got some of these near falls, the crowd were pumped. And it was so hype, the match. The crowd was so fire. And it gives me Hogan Rock vibes, the crowd, just how big the match felt and how much it meant to the crowd for Johnny to win, but he didn't. And that was the thing. But the crowd throughout the match was so good, and the match as well was just immense, and everything was just so... Every little spot was so important, and the crowd, whenever Johnny was on the offensive, the crowd was just going for it. They were trying to get Johnny to win with their reactions, but Andrade, like Santa Claus on Christmas Eve, sometimes, if he's drunk, just says, "Fuck you, crowd. This is my title. I'm keeping it. This is Johnny Gargano. Here you go." But he's not having the title. It's just... I don't know, with the crowd, the atmosphere at the time, Philadelphia being being the crazy, like being crazy as it is, Philadelphia, just that atmosphere was something else, and the match as well, having Gargano lose that match as well, I think was the right decision, because it just kept people wanting more and just chomping at the bit. And I think in terms of Johnny Gargano's career, I feel like that match kind of interpreted his, like, how much the fans loved him, and kind of really showed the guys at WWE, the higher ups and whatnot, and even Triple H, just how much and how popular Johnny Gargano is to the crowd and how important he is to them as well. And I think having Andrade win, like I said, was the right decision. But just seeing the match as a whole, honestly, the match as a whole, I could have put it at number 2, but I decided to put it at number 6 because I think what happened later down the line and what happened from this match was more important and better as an outcome of this match.
You know, not gonna lie, just like your Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole thing, you kind of took the wind out of my sails, because my number 5 was Johnny Gargano versus Andrade Cien Almas at NXT Takeover Philadelphia. So we're just gonna kind of skirt right along here.
Number 4.
My number 4. This is from NXT Takeover War Games 2017, and that was the triple threat War Games match between Undisputed Era, Sanity, and the Authors of Pain and Roderick Strong. Oh man, I mean, again, just the significance of it being the first one, but it was a really fucking cool match just to sit through. I mean, very spot heavy with weapons and such, but again, just like the ladder match, everybody had their chance to shine. Like at one point, like Sanity was like surrounding the Yui with like weapons. Killian Dane did some like cool coast to coast spot because Killian Dane is a freaking like holy shit. Obviously the spot off the top of the steel cage. Because in War Games you always have to have that spot. Because like the first one, it was Roderick Strong and Adam Cole doing the superplex, Ricochet doing the freaking huge crazy flip off the cage, and of course Ciampa doing the I guess you could say the air raid crash through the through the table off the cage to Adam Cole. But this one in particular was just really cool because this was the first time in a while that War Games was done, and just having it like just the long-term story of like Undisputed Era coming in and pissing people off, and Sanity and Authors of Pain, like it was just a really, really fun match. And just in general, just I would say arguably this is the first one, and this is I believe the first one where William Regal goes, oh, War Games! God, I missed when he did that.
Alright. Well, I do have a War Games match on here, but it's not my number 4. So, luckily, we can break the streak of taking the wind out of each other's sails, because my number 4 is Sasha versus Bayley for the NXT Women's Championship at NXT Takeover Brooklyn. To me, this is Sasha's best match to date, still. And also Bayley's. It's their best matches to date. And if I'm being honest, it's my favourite women's match that I've ever watched. Because I think Sasha, as a heel, especially to that little girl who was a fan of Bayley as well, just being another dick to her, I love that from a heel. Just not just going after the face, like the person itself, like going after extensions of that face, going after the fans and such. Sasha pulled a real dick move, and as a heel, you rarely see that. Obviously, we've seen that with Randy Orton punting Cena's dad. We've seen that with Orton punting Dusty Rhodes. And we saw Sasha doing it to Bayley's biggest fan. And then the match just became that much more intense and that much more critical for Bayley to win. And the match as a whole was a brilliant match. The atmosphere was second to none. And I think they made the right choice with Bayley winning, I believe. And just that match as a whole is probably the most important women's match that we've seen. Maybe you could say the triple threat Mania main event was more important, but I think in terms of laying the groundwork, this was crucial to what we've seen in the last 5 to 10 years.
I agree. I mean, oh, man, dude, like that women's match is so good. And also, I think like Sasha did an entrance like with the car during her entrance, which that was a big deal too. So, I mean, we could both agree that this match was excellent.
Yeah.
All right,
100%.
my number 3. This is a match you already brought up, and that was DIY versus the Revival from NXT Takeover Toronto. I mean, obviously we've had better NXT tag team matches after this, but this one was like, to me, in terms of like story, I think the story to this match was really good because again, it's a very simple story of Gargano and Ciampa are the underdogs. They weren't supposed to be there, and now they're like in the top spot taking on the Revival. And they had their match in Brooklyn, the previous takeover, and that match was excellent. And then going into it, it was 2 out of 3 falls, and again, just perfectly paced. The first fall, they're kind of going back and forth a little bit, but the Revival cheat to get the upper hand and get the first fall. Then the second fall is them working on Gargano, but Gargano gets the hot tag, and then Ciampa comes in, and then he's a house of fire, and the Revival, doing their tag moves, doing the heart attack on Gargano at one point, and then of course, they try to mock DIY, but then, the DIY hit him with the shatter machine, and, they're just going back and forth trading their finishers, and eventually getting to the end where all near close calls, and, kind of going back to NXT TakeOver Brooklyn where they hurt Johnny Gargano's leg, but DIY just overcome the odds and win the belts. It was just, to me, it was a feel-good moment, a feel-good story, and an excellent match. You had 4 really talented guys in terms of Dash Wilder, Scott Dawson, Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano. I mean, they told a really good story, and just as a whole, it was just it was just a great tag team title match. Very good.
Yeah. I've already explained myself for that match at number 9, so yeah. My favourite tag match from NXT, so I mean that's all you really have to say. Right.
Very true.
My number 3. Oh, did you do your number 4? Or was that your number 4?
No, my number 4 was War Games.
Right, okay. My number 3 is a War Games match, and it is the Undisputed Era versus Keith Lee, Dominik Dijakovic, Tommaso Ciampa, and Kevin Owens in 2019, I believe.
Yes.
And the reason that's my favourite War Games match is Kevin Owens. The return of Kevin Owens to NXT. I think that was the night before Survivor Series as well, where NXT was involved in that. And Kevin Owens returning, like, you can go on back and watch the reaction of the crowd. But it was like the king returning to his kingdom. It was so loud, and it electrified the stadium. The match was good already on its own. Like, I think it would probably be the second best War Games match without Kevin Owens in it. But the fact that he was in it and we didn't know about it until he came out, and then the match just got so much better. Everything just started to flow much better with the match. Keith Lee and Dijakovic were on fire. Adam Cole was amazing. Ciampa, I think his team won the match, and he put his heart and soul into that match. Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, and Roddy Strong were also really, really clinical in that match. But as a whole, with the Kevin Owens return, like the one night stand of Kevin Owens in NXT, going back to his old fling kind of thing, Kevin Owens just elevated that match to a different level. It's like The Rock returned to SmackDown or Stone Cold going back to Raw on that level, because Kevin Owens was really one of the founding fathers of NXT. Him, Sami Zayn, Adrian Neville, Corey Graves as well, you could say, because he used to wrestle on NXT back in the day. But yeah, it was just like the electric, like the crowd was so electric when Kevin returned. The match flowed much better, and it felt like a natural war between the 8 men that participated, and that match really solidified War Games being the match type in NXT and even in WWE.
You know what? I actually really like that. That War Games match is actually in my honorable mentions. Because again, just like it was so hard to really come up with like a huge list of. There's just a lot of stuff that I really liked. So, yeah, very very good pick.
Mm. Oh, no, that's why I picked it.
All right, my number 2 is another pick that you brought up earlier, and that was Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura at NXT Takeover Dallas. Now, I was able to watch this match live, and man, I mean, just the electricity from the crowd and just the fight forever chance when like they're trading blows, so good. And you know, all the spots like Sammy going for his DDT through the ring post, but Nakamura catches him with a kick, and just a very like strong style heavy match. And you know, they were trading like pinfalls, you know, submissions, and so many close calls, but it was just Nakamura was just better, outclassed them, and just overall, it was just a brilliant match. Just as a whole, like I'm not going to go too deep into it because you already talked about it a lot, but it's because of it being so good and just in general just working so well. I have to put it as my number 2.
Okay. Well, I feel like we decided to go in circles here because my number 2 you have also already mentioned, and that is the inaugural NXT North American Championship ladder match. Now, this match for me it just felt different to any other match I've seen in NXT up to that point. It just felt different, it felt special, and Ricochet in that match was amazing. That's my first time watching him like in any match. Also, I watched Ricochet, like his first singles match I watched was him and Cole, which was my number 10. He looked superb in that match, and honestly, I thought he would have been better than Rey Mysterio ever was because of just how much his high-flying techniques were perfected. Like, I know he's not a Vince McMahon kind of guy, but I hope he can get a bit of a push under Triple H so people can really see Ricochet. Velveteen Dream, that match was stellar. Lars Sullivan going into that match was presented like a man among men, like the alpha male of our species, as per se. Thank you to Pat McAfee for that one. But honestly, I wanted Lars Sullivan to win that match just before, like, going into it, because I felt like he would have benefited so much. Gotta be honest, EC3, I don't remember much of what he did in that match. Killian Dane impressed me a lot in that match, and because he was part of Sanity, and I weren't really a big fan of Sanity. But I think that was his first match to watch where it were a tag match, and he impressed heavily. And having Adam Cole win, I think that was, after Lars Sullivan, the correct choice, because your first champion of any new belt should be someone who's big, who can elevate these younger guys and make the title feel like it has some importance. Like the AEW World title, they gave it to Jericho first. He elevated the Inner Circle, Moxley, Cody, brought these new guys in, MJF, Darby Allin, Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus. And I felt like Adam Cole did that with the NXT North American title. And the match that got him to that title was also superb. And Yeah. If it weren't for number one, this would be my number one. And it is my favourite ladder match that I've seen in a while.
Okay. Very, very, very nice pick. I mean, it was also on my list as well. But yeah, very, very good choice. Um, Now my number one, yeah, yeah, I'm just gonna say it. Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa, NXT Takeover, New Orleans. Um,
Before you
I
continue, I think we could both talk about this match because it's also my number one.
really, I thought you were
Yeah.
gonna put the Brooklyn Four match, the Last Man Standing.
I nearly did, but I told myself I was only going to pick one, and I had to pick this one.
Well, I guess we can both talk about it.
Yeah.
I just, as a whole, I think as much as I really loved all three of them, this in particular, I just think it's just so good because of the story behind it. I mean, Ciampa turns on Gargano, and he's making Gargano's life a living hell, and so they have. So now Gargano's now gone from NXT because Ciampa cost him the last chance NXT title match, and Gargano's like, I'm gonna kill Ciampa, and then he's like running him down the parking lot, and then finally like Ciampa's like, all right, fuck it, let's just have a match so I can get ready for good, and then you get to the match, and it's not as extreme as people would think with it being an unsanctioned match. It was still more of like a singles match, but you still had like the crutch and the knee brace, so you still had like it was more about the story being told, and it's just Gargano's will to stay in NXT, but Ciampa's trying to get rid of him. Like he's kicking Gargano's ass for like a good portion of the matchup. Then Gargano comes back, and he comes back with his own hard hitting, strikes, and he's like trying to fight back, and Gargano hits him with a crutch. Kind of like reminiscent of NXT Takeover Philadelphia when Ciampa came back and hit him in the back with the crutch. I mean, there's just so many like Easter eggs here, and using the exposed turnbuckle, and hitting the Project Ciampa off the top rope, but the ending was really great, as like it looks as if Gargano was finally going to kill Ciampa, but Ciampa like he stops because he sees Ciampa as like this, like you could feel like Gargano's relenting because it's basically his former best friend, kind of, and he's like seeing Ciampa like, and he's like, man, I he really wanted to just not do it, but then it turns out he was being deceitful, and like Ciampa tries to hit him with the knee brace, but again, it turned into the Gargano escape and the STF with the knee brace, and Gargano taking down the big bad. But as we all know, fairy tales are not real life, because Ciampa comes back. But just for the moment and just for the overall match itself, it's my number one.
Yeah. I mean, the match was like a 40-minute beatdown for both men. Like, they had matches after this, but I feel like this one really symbolized Gargano versus Ciampa, neatly wrapped in a 40-minute spectacle in Brooklyn, not New Orleans, sorry. And this was the takeover before WrestleMania, I believe. And just having that match, if I remember, that was WrestleMania 34, the year this took place in. The takeover took place on the Saturday, WrestleMania 34 took place on the Sunday. Now, we know how disappointing WrestleMania 34 was, but
Oh
NXT
yeah.
Takeover, Gargano versus Ciampa, and then you also had I can't remember now. I think there was some other match, I can't remember. But Gargano versus Ciampa, that 40-minute spectacle that you call an unsanctioned match, like, Also, we've had them in WWE before. You had Seth versus Triple H last year for it, like WrestleMania 33. It was just all the matches as well. Before this, you had Black versus Andrade. You had the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. You had the ladder match as well for the North American title. But this match stood above everything. It's going to stand the test of time. And whenever anyone hears NXT, you always think Gargano, Ciampa, and blood, sweat, and tears that they both put into making each other's lives a living hell. Whilst the Last Man Standing match, I think, was more brutal for both men, this match was more personal and more of a story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, just a great match all overall, and just lots of great stuff. And I think those are overall our lists. I mean, I think they were both very good, very, very strong picks.
Yeah.
Now before we end this, I do have a bunch of honorable mentions I do want to bring up real quick. I'm just gonna breeze through them. Like earlier, Walter versus Ilya Dragunov at NXT Takeover 36 for the UK Championship. Tommaso Ciampa versus Velveteen Dream at NXT Takeover War Games for the NXT Championship. Candice LeRae versus Io Shirai at NXT Takeover Toronto. The other two Gargano Ciampa matches. Tommaso Ciampa versus Walter at Stand and Deliver. The other two War Games matches from 2018 2019. DIY versus The Revival from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2016. Adrian Neville versus Sami Zayn at NXT TakeOver R Evolution. Finn Balor versus Finn Balor versus Kevin Owens in the ladder match at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly, Stand and Deliver. And then there's a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
But those are my honorable mentions.
I think I have one to add.
Oh. What's that?
Let me think. Oh, I fucking had it. Give me a sec. Yeah, fucker. Oh, it's fucking in there. Come on. Where are you? Just give me a second. I'll try and think of it.
Uncomfortable silence.
Oh, there we go. Balor versus Joe.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. That was one of them. Would have had it, but there's better.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I was thinking of Balor, and for some reason I kept thinking Balor versus Shinsuke, but it weren't that. It was Balor versus Joe. I was thinking of.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, think we're gonna wrap this up. Because I actually have to I have to leave soon. So I want to thank Kavari in the chat. Shadowhunter, let the people know where they can find you at.
Well, I'm not going to give out my address because I'll just be creepy. So you can find me on my YouTube, Shadowhunter. I don't really do much on there. It's just kind of, it's a hobby, I guess. Just doing stuff like this. It's not really something I'm willing to, put 100% into, but it's a hobby. I put stuff out like wrestling content, football stuff every now and then. Just stuff that I enjoy, On Twitter, I've been using that a lot, if I'm being honest, just to talk random, utter nonsense at times at PF Shadowhunter. So if you want to follow me on there, I put out a tweet every now and then, just filled with nothing but I don't know. But yeah, you can also find me on this channel, Good Ol Wrasslin, and I am in the background working ever so silently on the my GM mode, kicking Austin's ass every single week. You can see the effort Austin's trying to put into beat me as well, but look and no cigar, I'm afraid.
Hey, I'm coming back slowly but surely. I mean, your lead's not as big as it once was.
But I've got a lot of money that I can splash out at SummerSlam.
Very true.
Whilst you've been splashing out your money on the fucking Raw shows.
That is true, but sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do.
We'll see.
Yeah, I guess we will see. Yeah, I got my own channel that you're watching right now. I just do a bunch of stuff. I'm gonna be at least a little bit more wrestling forward later on down the line. Because I personally, as far as like Marvel, DC stars, like I feel like I enjoy talking about wrestling even more than those things. So it's like I'm just gonna talk about wrestling from now on, and also like I'm still gonna do like other stuff too, but wrestling is gonna be the main focal point, and I'm gonna be doing a weekly Raw and SmackDown reviews as well as pay-per-views because I'm genuine because I'm hey, listen, it's getting good now, guys. It's getting good, so I can't wait to just do that stuff. And yeah, next episode of this, we'll find something else to talk about. Maybe that will probably be the wheel thing. Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe. Anywho, thank you guys for watching. This is the Austinator signing out. Peace.